Orlando.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
The voice of Magic fans.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans. In the virtual studio today, we have Justin.
Yo.
Al.
Hey, what's going on?
Myself, Anthony, and no special guests this time around, guys. We are back. We are fully completed with our quarantine series. Really big thank you, and we are very, very grateful to have the 13 guests that we've had on, man. It's exciting to kind of see how everyone's been doing during this quarantine time, getting to know the players and the different guests that we had on, and also giving our listeners a chance to kind of get to know these very influential individuals to the Orlando Magic organization and whatnot. But, you know, with everyone that we had on, guys, who were some of your favorites?
Man, there was just so many great guests that we had on. Thinking about, especially the broadcasting team, having David Steele, you know, Jeff Turner, Dante Marcatelli, just a special number of guests. The players that joined us, not only from the Magic, but also from Lakeland. But one that just jumps out to me, it's got to be Darrell Armstrong. Just the fact that we actually had him cry on our podcast was special to me. But just again, you could just tell the passion that he has for the city, for our team, the memories, how much they mean to him. That to me was really, really special.
Yeah, shame on you, Al, for making him emotional on our podcast.
Yeah, I think I agree with Al 100%. I think having the broadcasting guys was really special. Just to know, you know, that they all started, you know, from the point that they started at and where they're at now and how long they've been with the Magic and how passionate they are about the team. I think that was really eye-opening to see. Obviously, having guys who actually played for the team and currently play for the team, like Wes Iwundu, MCW, Bo Outlaw, Darrell Armstrong, like those guys were special because their perspective is entirely different than, you know, the broadcasters or sideline reporters and things like that. But it was overall, you know, very special, very humbling, and I'm glad that we had that opportunity. And for those of you guys that aren't familiar with what it is that we're talking about or haven't been able to listen to our quarantine series, you can go back and check those out. There are about 13 episodes that we did, you know, with guests, people associated with the Magic, and it was a fun time.
Yeah, man. Some of the ones that stood out to me is I really enjoyed our podcast that we had with Andrew Nicholson, who had a pretty, it was, I would say, a fan favorite with us the 4 or 5 years that he played with us. But just to get his perspective of how it was like playing internationally in China and how, you know, the little differences of the type of food that they ate to the way they did their transportation, I thought was really insightful to get, you know, kind of how it looked on that side of the world. And then Vic Law was also really fun to have on. Vic Law
Right.
is a really good dude. To hear his story of his collegiate experience and then his transition into working in the G League and also hearing, you know, what's the day in the life of a G League player, I thought was really fun. And it kind of felt as if we've known him for a while because the chemistry off the back was awesome with Vic Law. He's definitely someone that I'm rooting for jumping into the bubble. Now, obviously, during this time frame, we really didn't know exactly what the layout of the land was going to be for the NBA. You know, we're at the point where we know exactly. We know the format. We know who we're going to be playing against and whatnot. And we were introduced to the bubble at Disney. NBA is in Orlando. And, yeah, what are you guys looking forward to with Magic basketball starting and everything in the bubble?
Man, I'm just looking forward to Magic basketball being back. It's been a while. It kind of got taken away from us, you know, unexpectedly due to the COVID-19 situation. And just having the Magic back, it's going to be fun to just be able to go to work, come back home, and know that, hey, there's games going on. We're playing for something also. We're not just showing up to play 8 games and go home and that's it. We're actually playing for seeding. We're actually playing for a playoff position. And, you know, there's a lot going on still. Even on the Western Conference, there's a lot going on. So just watching basketball again, it's going to be something that I'm looking forward to the most. And just also to see how things turn out. It's going to be interesting to see how not having fans, you know, how would that look like? The broadcasting, I know it's going to be done remotely. Then they're going to be there in the arena. So all of these things, I'm looking forward to just seeing how that's going to look. And just the turnout for our Magic, how that's going to look for ours, and where we're going to be at the end of this seeding games.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I find interesting is going to be, like we were talking about before we started recording, is just the chemistry with the guys. I think the guys on this team have really good chemistry. Everybody gets along. Everybody jokes around. And I think there's like a sense of inclusivity with everyone. Everyone's kind of together at all times. It's going to be interesting kind of later in the time frame, depending on, where we make the playoffs and how deep we go into the playoffs. The guys seeing each other every single day at all times, not being able to, see their families. I wonder how that's going to kind of play a role into the product on the court and the chemistry in the locker room as well. Those are some things that I think are interesting.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it really does look like a AAU experience for the players, and the fact that they're all locked down and they're kind of forced to hang out with each other all day, because if not, they'll be bored out of their mind. You can kind of already see on social media the different activities that they've done. They've gone golfing, they've done fishing, I want to say I saw a video of Terrence Ross setting the PlayStation up for Evan Fournier so that they can play some FIFA. Like there's just been so much going on, and you can really tell that our players really like each other. There was another video that I saw that Mo Bamba was taking a picture of a fish that he caught, and in reality it wasn't even his fish. He sold off of Gary Clark. So you can really tell that there is camaraderie with our team, and one can only hope that as good as the time that I see that they have, that does translate over onto the court. And with that being said, let's jump into the juice. So analyzing our schedule, obviously we have about 3 scrimmage games before we get into the finishing of the 8 games of the season to kind of see where we're going to end up with our seeding. But to start off with the scrimmaging, we have Clippers, Lakers, and Nuggets. Now, obviously, these are games that are to get our feet wet so that we kind of get back into the rhythm. Guys, what do you feel about the scrimmage? And then what do you feel about the strengths of the schedules that we have?
Man, I actually like it. I like the fact that we're playing against 3 of the top teams in the West. And we know it's preseason in a way, even worse than preseason. I think it's going to be just, like you mentioned, it's just to get their feet wet, get the ball rolling. So we're not going to get, top-tier LeBron playing 38 minutes against us. But I do like the fact that we're playing against good competition. We are playing for something meaningful once the 8 playing games resume. So we want to make sure that we are playing at a high level. And these teams will challenge us. Even their bench, even their coaching staff is top tier. So we want to be prepared for those 8 games. So I'm looking forward to that. It may not be fun if we end up getting blown out in those 3 games for whatever reason. But once those playing games start, I feel we'll be a better team because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think for a long time I felt like this team always kind of plays up to the level of competition. And that's been kind of one of the things that we've struggled with, during the season, is when we play lower tier teams, we don't bring the game and we sometimes lose those games. So I think although the scrimmages don't matter in the grand scheme of things, I think being in there with, like Al said, top level competition will kind of bring out the best in the guys. So that'll be interesting to see.
I'm really happy with the schedule that we have. Obviously for the scrimmage games, games that won't impact our record, the Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets. I mean, those are teams that you want to go against, right? When they're all in the West Coast, they're strong teams, and you're not going to see them in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So they're good teams that they have strong rosters. So even their second strings that you put them in, they're still going to put up some competition and whatnot. And it does give us a lot of opportunity to be able to work out, whatever schemes it is that Coach Clifford wants to play out, rotations. Hopefully at this point he doesn't need to figure out the whole rotation piece. But at the same time, again, it's a good way to kind of get our feet wet. Now, looking into the schedule, I like the fact that we're playing against the Nets twice. Little things that I am worried about is I would have to say the Indiana Pacers, especially with the news of Victor Oladipo potentially coming back. And because you would really hope that with the schedule that we have, that we just come out swinging. We want to make sure that we take over the 7th seed. And for the most part, the only teams that can really see us giving us a run for our money is going to be the Sixers and the Celtics, and then maybe the Indiana Pacers just kind of figuring out, what it is that they have with Victor Oladipo.
So I think the Raptors are probably going to be added to that list too. I feel like the Raptors always come ready to play, especially when they go up against the Magic. But I think it's interesting, right? Because the Nets have literally fallen apart within the last couple weeks. I think it's like 4 or so players tested positive for COVID. Obviously, KD's not playing, Kyrie's not playing. But even with those 2 stars out, I felt like Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, those guys, I felt like they could have still kind of put up a tough battle for us. But now knowing that like Spencer Dinwiddie's not playing either, DeAndre Jordan. So I think that has created a scenario where the Magic should make the playoffs now. I mean, if the Wizards fell apart, the Nets fell apart, those were the only 2 teams that were really contending against us for that last spot, or those bottom 2 spots. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Magic are going to be motivated going into this, knowing that although there is no home court advantage, there is a hometown advantage. The guys didn't have to travel to get here. They kind of just drove in from their houses. I think that plays a role. Just being familiar with the area, breathing the same air that you breathe all the time, the temperature you're used to. I don't know. It's just little things that you may not think about, I think are going to impact how the games play out.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the schedule, like you mentioned, I think those teams in the middle of the schedule, which thankfully by the middle of the schedule, we should be playing at a higher level. We've had 3 scrimmage games. We've had a couple easy opponents to get us going in the playing games. So when we do start to see, the Pacers, the Raptors, the Sixers, and Celtics, I think we should be good by then. Another thing, too, the Pelicans. Zion just left the bubble, and he may not be back for a little while. So what does that mean? Is he going to be around to play against us? But the biggest thing, again, the schedule is what it is. But one thing to keep in mind is we've beaten the Nets twice this season already. So if we've won one of those 2 games, automatically we have the tiebreaker against them. That's huge as well. Because if it does come down to be within a few games, or maybe, hey, the Nets surprise the world and Jamal Crawford goes crazy playing for them, maybe we end up being tighter than we want to be. But that at least beating them once, if not twice, is going to be crucial for us to secure that 7th seed. And that should be our goal. We should not be at the 8th seed. There's no reason why. We should definitely get that, lock in the 7th seed by the time the playoffs start.
Yeah, I think we're in good position. I mean, we're exactly where we want to be with, the Wizards being they won't have Bradley Beal, so they're going to have a weak roster. The Nets exactly in the same way. So anything less than the 7th seed would obviously be a major disappointment for this team, for this roster. What I like to see is the fact that even with everything going on, it's improvements. Last season we were in the 8th seed of the Eastern Conference going into the playoffs. This year, if we're able to do what we're supposed to do, get us to the 7th seed, and then slowly but surely still continuing to grow as a team. So those are things that we are excited to see. Now, there has been some news. This quarantine hasn't been exactly easy. We're just now starting to get, more players from our roster joining the bubble. So it was reported that James Ennis, he announced that he was a player who tested positive with COVID. And then Markelle Fultz arrived late to the camp. He just got freed from his 2-day of quarantine once he made it into the bubble and just had his first major practice. Guys, how excited are you with Markelle Fultz finally joining the team?
There is legitimate excitement for Markelle because, I don't know, Markelle is just one of those guys. I feel like they're like star is what describes Markelle, star in the making. I think everything about him, the way he carries himself, his speed, his energy on the court, he kind of runs around on defense, switches all the time, and his energy is always good. One thing that concerns me, though, is even during the season when we saw Markelle playing regularly, he was having a lot of muscle cramping, right? So how is that gonna impact his play? He hasn't had the same amount of practice time as everyone else. He's kind of jumping in on the tail end of the whole bubble experience, which is new for him. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm looking at early, just to see how his body's holding up, how well he's taking care of himself during the quarantine, how active he's been with his workouts and things like that. But as far as being excited, I mean, who's not excited to see Markelle on the court?
Yeah, I mean, think about the fact that, he had some time to rest that shoulder. I'm sure the Magic had virtual workouts, whatever you want to call them, and make sure that shoulder was being worked, that physical therapy was still going on. So I'm excited to see what he looks like after 3 months of not playing with rest now knowing the team, now knowing the dynamics, the schemes on offense, there's a lot of excitement again, like you mentioned, Justin, the star power is there. I mean, anytime you post anything, in my case on social media, about Markelle Fultz, it usually blows up. And that means people are watching. People want this kid to succeed. And so do we, of course. But also, let's not forget about James Ennis. He was a late addition to the team. He was only with us for about a month when the season was suspended. And he's a guy that we added because we wanted more defense. We wanted more three-point shooting. And I think he can add that. Whatever happens to J.I., whether he comes back or not, he will have a role in this team. And I'm excited for him. Being with a team that he's healthy is important. So I'm excited for him to get some reps here before the scrimmages games. And I do hope that he had some time to go through tape and now knows our team better. So when we start the games, he's ready to roll with us.
Yeah, James Ennis is a big part of this team. He can be a player that is a legitimate starter for us if we needed him to play that role. He's a big, true small forward. Especially with Jonathan Isaac still being in the air, he's definitely a body that we absolutely need to have. So I'm really glad that he has joined this team, that he's freely clear of COVID-19. And shout out to everyone that did their research and put on their investigation hats and tried to figure out who that mysterious player with COVID-19 was. Would like to say, Justin, you got it absolutely wrong, because didn't you say Mo Bamba?
Yeah, initially that was my speculation. I noticed that Ennis was missing from a lot of like team news, but I didn't see Bamba coming off the bus with the team or anything like that. And it just it felt weird because he's one of the young guys, one of the guys that is a big part of the future of this team, and he wasn't spoken about a lot in the beginning. So I thought it was him, but I was dead wrong.
Yeah, I felt like we were all playing like this massive game of Clue. Like everyone was dissecting every single social media video that was out there, trying to figure out who was in the background, who wasn't. It was good entertainment, well needed entertainment for a little bit. Markelle Fultz, yeah, man, it's exciting to have him back. We're kind of, we don't know if we're just looking at the same video over and over, but Justin, you had mentioned that in one of the practice videos that they were playing, that we still saw a little bit of a hitch in the shot. One of the things I noticed is that his mid-range game is his shot mid-range is so much smoother than just him shooting from the corner or shooting the three. He did mention that it was going to take him about maybe a week or two to kind of get back into game shape. And they did also report that, they held him out of 5-on-5 practice because they want him to kind of not jump straight into it, but kind of break him in a little bit. But, right, man, can you imagine this team without a Markelle Fultz? Like, it's even hard to believe 2-3 years ago that we didn't have this guy. He is exactly what I think he is, which is what you mentioned, Justin, that he's a star for this team. And I think that the dynamic of him as our point guard it's scary for a lot of the teams in the East.
A lot of what Markelle does is impressive, right? Because in the league today, you would say, like, you need a three-point shot, especially if you're a guard of any sort, right? But Markelle's kind of proven that you don't, because, like you said, his mid-range game is so clean, right? He can shoot in motion, come off screens, and pop that way too. It's really impressive, and his speed getting at the rim is crazy. He can finish through contact. So his strength is there, his speed is there, his shot from the mid-range is there, and I think you could be successful. I mean, like DeMar's not a point guard, obviously, but he's proven if your mid-range game is top level, elite level, you really don't need a three-point shot. And Markelle's proven he could hit those when he's open too. So we'll see. It's still like Evan said, it was really his rookie season. So I think the sky's the limit for Markelle. I'm really excited to see what he looks like in the bubble.
And think about this. So you're saying he has no three-point shot, but he also ranks as one of the last NBA players in fouls drawn. So he's not getting calls either. And he attacks the basket a ton. So think about the fact that maybe in a year or two, Markelle now gets more recognition. He starts being looked at as more of a star player. And he gets, to the line 8 times a game. And he does make, let's say, 6 of those free throws. Now he's averaging 13 points plus 6. We're at 19 points a game already. Add a 3-pointer more here and there, you now have a 20-point per game point guard, which we haven't had since who? Steve Francis, if that. Like, it's, again, to me, I can't wait for that moment where we can say, hey, we step into to a game and we know we have a point guard that's going to average 20 points a game, dish out the ball, perform highlights play. We haven't had a player like that in years, and I'm excited just for that alone.
Yeah, man, and especially because Markel, he's he's by far one of the most creative players I've ever seen. Like it's crazy because when I watch him play and he drives to the lane, I don't know how he gets around the players that he gets around. It is insane. It's fun to watch, and he's definitely someone that's dangerous. And what's more fun to watch than like revenge Markel? I cannot wait to play the Sixers. But real quick, I wanted to shout out whoever it was that put Stan Van Gundy on a Twitter. Whoever taught that man how to use a Twitter is by far the best thing that has happened in the last couple weeks. But not some good news, right? Because it was just reported recently that the Magic laid off about 10% of their full-time workforce due to the COVID-19. And Stan Van Gundy went to Twitter and kind of he gave the Magic some criticism. He said these layoffs just couldn't be avoided. The DeVos family that owns the Magic only has a net worth of about $5 billion. They just couldn't afford to continue to pay all of their employees. Obviously, right now, there's a lot of businesses in the United States that they are struggling due to COVID-19 challenges. And it's a little heartening. What do you guys think about the news that came out about, the unfortunate layoffs?
Man, it's disappointing. I mean, I know me and you both work in banking, so we're seeing the impact that this thing is having on families and businesses in our communities. But I don't know, man. I think when I think of businesses that are struggling right now, I don't think of the Orlando Magic. I don't think of an NBA team. I don't think of owners that, like Stan Van Gundy mentioned, have net worths in the billions of dollars. I think of the average middle-class families that can't open a restaurant right now, or can't open, their gift store, whatever it may be. So to hear the news, unfortunately, it's not the best of news. Like you mentioned, I think that it could have been avoided. I do understand, there's no ticket sales right now. I do understand there's no revenue coming in from sales at the arena. I get all that. But when your ownership has billions of dollars, and as far as I know, we are the first team to announce that we're laying off a certain percentage of our workforce. It's disappointing, unfortunately. And I agree with Sam Magoni 100%. It could have been avoided. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I'm just hoping that when things pick back up, these employees are hired again in some way, because, again, it shouldn't have happened to begin with.
Yeah, I read online, excuse me, and I don't know how real or accurate this is, but just for perspective, that 10% of the workforce would have equated to about $280,000. When you look at $280,000 in comparison to a family that's worth billions of dollars, it's like, in my opinion, that could have been toughed out. You have guys like John Denton, who was, one of the guys who was laid off. He was, essential to Magic content, right? He was one of the longer running guys providing Magic articles for the team. And to see him being laid off was a little upsetting. It felt like, as an organization, you have a responsibility to these guys, to keep them employed. And I'm sure, Ant, you're going to mention this at some point, but Alex Martins had also made comments, right, about the necessity for protecting these jobs, right, especially during COVID-19. And to see that that's not the case, and to see a reversal just a few months after those comments were made by Alex Martins, it's just a little bit frustrating, honestly.
Well, we're not going to sit here and say that the Magic organization didn't do anything. Back in March in 2020, they did donate up to $2 million to be able to pay for these hourly workers. It's just sad to see that it got to this point. The Magic are valued at almost $2 billion as an organization. SVG said that the DeVos family, their estimated worth is about $5 billion as a family. It's just hard for us to fathom that they had to get rid of 31 full-time employees. It's hard to believe that they really couldn't have done anything else. There are obviously there's options like the Disney. They furloughed employees. You know what I mean? Why wasn't that an option? Why is just laying off the only option that was left? I think that's the part that's the most heartbreaking about all of this, because now what are they supposed to do? Back in March, Alex Martins, and I don't remember the exact quote that he said, but I remember him saying that, we don't know exactly how we're going to be able to help our team members, because that was at the point where even players were donating to be able to support. But he said that, no matter what we decide to do, we're an organization that we always do what's right for our team members, for our employees. Kind of feel like this wasn't it. This wasn't even close to it. So it's even more heartbreaking to know also that we're the first team to lay off employees. We're supposed to be character first organization. We're supposed to be the one that does everything right. And to me, this just brings a really, really bad message and a bad look for the organization in total.
I agree. And let's not forget, too, NBA, it's resuming in Orlando. So to kind of have this news coming out of Orlando, it's kind of like, really? And I do know there's some employees from the Magic that are working in the bubble that just got there right now. So, again, it's just with everything that's going on right now, as I mentioned before, the NBA being in Orlando, for us to be the first team to lay off employees, unfortunately, the messaging is not what I think we should be hearing from the team right now.
Yeah, we don't know the exact details. We just hope that a little more could have been done, and who knows? Hopefully that there's something that can be compensated along the way. But let's jump into pass or shoot. So we haven't done this segment in a long while, and what's exciting about obviously as fun as the guests that we had it's good that we're able to kind of get back to talking basketball, right? So very first one off the jump. MCW will continue his strong play and be a key member of the rotation off the bench. Pass or shoot?
I am shooting on that 100%. I think MCW is, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but MCW is one of those guys that gives you 150% effort, and I think a lot of getting into rhythm and a lot of contributing on the floor is based on effort. So I think MCW is no question going to be one of those guys that from the beginning is going to impact this team in a positive way. So I'm super excited to see MCW back on the court.
100%. I'm shooting as well. I think that what we've seen from him before the season ended, I mean, he was balling. Like, he was averaging close to 20 points a game. He was hitting some mid-range shots, some three-point shots. Like, he was legitimately becoming a player that we've known this for a while, especially in our podcast group. We love this guy. When we picked him up since day one, what he brought to the team. But then what I've seen even in the videos, this guy just looks like a different player altogether. I'm ready, and I completely agree. I think that he will come off the bench, add a different dimension to this team. And not only that, he can now play the 1, the 2, the 3. Heck, in today's NBA, the 4. He will find a way to get some minutes and be a key member of our team. And we know Ross is the bench guy, right? Like that's the 6 men. So you think about when you think about a bench guy. But if you think about Augustine, MCW, and Ross playing well at the same time off the bench, man, again, that's what I'm saying. With this stoppage, no home court advantage really being there, anything can happen right now.
We had Daryl Armstrong on our podcast, Bo Outlaw on our podcast, guys that we considered as, the heart and hustle players of that era. MCW to me is made out of that same type of cloth, has that same type of pedigree. Is he going to have strong play and be a key member of the rotation? Hell yeah. How could he not, man? This guy is the type of dude that he will dive under every single ball. He'll go in there, get a bloody nose if he has to. He probably has one of the most, right next to Evan Fournier, a lot of emotion and passion. You see him have that kind of grittiness that he's not afraid to get into any player's face and, do what he has to do to protect the team. So is a player that I am a fan of, and it's hard to believe that, almost 2 seasons ago, this dude was almost out of the league. He was a steal. Yep. How could he not be?
MCW is one of those guys, like, all he needed was an opportunity. And I think a lot of people talk about, being hard workers and being driven and motivated and accomplishing things. But MCW is one of the few people that legitimately does those things, And I don't know. I feel like in any circumstance, you put him in there and he's going to adjust. He's going to adjust and he's going to bring what's needed. Like, I know during the season, a lot of the criticism early on was his three-point shooting was terrible. He was airballing a lot of threes. So what did he do? He readjusted his game, right? He took it to the rim a lot. But then moving toward the stoppage and play, he became a better three-point shooter. He was shooting them more confidently, and that was something that kind of showed through.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that's just kind of concerning to me, I know fast forwarding to after the season ends, it's free agency. What do we do with MCW at the end of the offseason? You know, he's a guy that this front office is building this team around good guys, hard workers. If that's not MCW, then who is? I mean, so I'm just, again, hitting fast forward, thinking off season already, but I do hope this guy's around here for a long, long time because he deserves it. He really embodies what an Orlando Magic player should look like.
Yeah, MCW by any means, he's not perfect, but man, he's definitely a person that I want to keep within the roster for as long as possible. All right, so jumping into the next one, Markelle Fultz. Will he be the X factor?
I'm going to surprise you guys with this one. I'm going to pass. Only because if Jonathan Isaac comes back at any point between now and the playoffs, and he's healthy, playing, 15 minutes a night off the bench, I think he becomes our X factor. Or another guy, Aaron Gordon. When the season stopped, he was playing his best basketball off the season. So if either one of those guys, Aaron Gordon or Jonathan Isaac, can some way somehow play at a high level heading into the playoffs, to me, those guys become the X factors. Not to say Markelle does not have a factor, because of course we know he's our point guard. We go as he goes. But I think those other guys are more players that are involved more at the moment in the offense, in the scheme of things. Isaac on the defensive end. So in my opinion, those guys will have a bigger impact on the team right away. So I'm going to pass on that.
You know, I'm going to pass too. But my X Factor guys are none of those. So I'm going to pass. But I think some of the guys that are, when I think of X Factor, is like when a team is planning to play Orlando, who are they not even thinking about, right? Who are they not thinking about, but who's going to show up and make them pay for not thinking about them? And two guys in particular come to mind. It's DJ Augustine and Wes Iwundu. I think Wes Iwundu is one of those guys that he's just a baller, man. He's one of those guys that kind of like MCW has that hustle, doesn't give up on plays, does whatever is asked of him. If you need him to come into the starting lineup, he will. If he doesn't play at all, that's fine. Like, we've seen it. He's gone from not being in the rotation at all to starting the very next game, and he makes pivotal plays. So just thinking about that, I think if Wes Iwundu is on, I think he could cause some problems.
Yeah, I should have went second. Wesley Iwundu would be my X factor, hands down. Markelle Fultz, you kind of already know, not necessarily saying that you know what you're getting with him, but if he balls out, you're expecting him to ball out. With Wesley Iwundu, you still kind of feel like we're still waiting for his breakout season, and I feel like he's in a perfect position to be able to do that. He's a DN3 player, so this dude can shoot the three. He's someone that you expect that isn't afraid to guard the LeBrons of the world. Like, he's out there, he knows what his role is, and I feel like he is a player that no one's going to pay attention to. And you know, if he's able to do just a little bit more than what we expect, you know, it can really change the dynamic of the team. It kind of even makes it really hard for Coach Clifford, because Wesley Iwundu is a player that, you know, throughout the season kind of fell out of the rotation a bit. But if he's going, that only gives, you know, Coach Cliff added ammunition to be able to throw out whatever it is that he wants to throw out within the rotation. He's a guy that can play the 2 and the 3, and he's someone that can really, really impact. Markelle Fultz is going to be that guy. But Wesley Iwundu is a guy that you're not thinking about.
Right. I think it's really interesting, right? Because we've heard, and I've seen on Twitter that Coach Cliff is planning to kind of extend the rotation a little bit, right? And give some more guys playing time. And when you look at it, I think there's maybe 10, 11 guys on this team who could, if they're on, who could cause damage, right? And Iwundu is just one of those guys. DJ Augustine is one of those guys. Thinking about a bench with DJ Augustine, Terrence Ross, Wes Iwundu, MCW, and that's all effort. All of those guys are effort. And if you got T. Ross and Iwundu hitting the threes at the level that they can, that's dangerous. I think that could be one of the better benches coming into the bubble if everybody's on. Yeah,
for sure. Now, it was reported earlier Mo Bamba did some media, online media with some of the media press from the Magic. They said that he put on 20 pounds. You passing or shooting?
I'm thinking. Hold on.
I'll go first.
Go first.
I am shooting. Have you not seen the pictures? This dude looks like a mammoth. Like, if you compare the pictures of what Mo Bamba looks like now compared to what he looks like when he first got into the NBA, this dude is massive. I think they said that he's weighing at about 250 pounds now.
Jeez.
He's 250 pounds, put on 20 pounds of muscle, and he still has crazy length. I'm expecting for this dude to go into the game and start elbowing, pushing people around. I know I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I see him in the game and I'm just thinking like, yo, this dude's going to start shacking people. Like how is he not going to? Because one of my biggest things with Mo is that, you know, I never really seen him dunk on anybody. Like, everything's just been kind of free out in the open. When you have that much weight to throw around in the paint, he's gonna put elbows on people, like, without question. Like, I just see an animal out there with putting on that much muscle.
What worries me, and I'm to answer your question, I'm gonna shoot. I think that it is possible that he gained 20 pounds. It's been a long time since the season was on. But one thing that worries me about Mo is that there were reports, right, that he's being limited because of concerns about his leg or whatever it is, and he had a hairline fracture, right, in his leg. So that's something that worries me. When you put on 20 pounds of muscle, your body has to adjust to that added weight, right? So it's not just like you pick up the weight and your body just automatically does what it used to do. So that might be why they're cautious, because they want his body to kind of get used to carrying that extra weight around. But one of the things is that Mo, like, he has pretty slim legs, right? So if the weight came from his upper body and his lower body's not kind of picking up the weight, it could hurt him in the long run. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but there is cause for concern if that is.
So I'm gonna after thinking about it, I'm gonna shoot, just because like Ant said, you can see it. It's obvious on the pictures that we're seeing of him. Dude looks like he's definitely added some muscle. By the way, Jonathan Isaac has as well. If we haven't seen his pictures recently, J.I. looks definitely like more toned, more defined. So this youth that we brought in as skinny guys that we all kind of surprised us.
Gone.
Hey, here we go. These guys are being built up now. But my concern with Mo is, he added the weight. Like Ant mentioned, though, his game is mostly three-point shooting and kind of staying out of the paint for some reason. I am hoping that he comes up now and starts throwing those elbows around, those muscles around, because he has them now. I just don't know if it's in him. Like Shaq, man, like this dude just legitimately wanted to kill people and dunk on people. Like
Right.
that was just in him. Mo, I think he'd rather pick and fade and hit those threes. But again, I'm gonna shoot on the question. I definitely can see that he added those muscles.
You guys remember Brandon Bass?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Brandon Bass was this dude was like a professional wrestler playing basketball. This dude was a house, and his mid-range game was insane. So not that I'm comparing the two, but if Mo Bamba is able to put on that muscle and still have that touch, that only is just an added arsenal to his game.
Yep.
What I need him to do is to be able to put his presence on people, and I think that as long as he's able to do that while maintaining, staying healthy, then I think that that only does wonders for us as a team collectively.
But what's interesting to me is that Mo does shoot the three at a good rate, right? But I think a center who can play in the paint and dominate in the paint is still something that can help teams win. Like, it's great to have a center that could space the floor, right? But kind of deep in the clock, like going toward the end of the game, you don't want your center shooting threes. You want to be able to give the ball to your center and just have him dominate in the paint and get you those wins in close situations. Like, 5 seconds left on the clock, tie game. I want Evan Fournier or Terrence Ross shooting a three. I don't want Mo Bamba pulling up from 30 feet to shoot a three to hopefully win us the game. I want Mo to dominate in the paint.
Yeah, you want him to grab the rebound in case we miss.
Yep.
At the same time,
putback.
At the same time, get you a center that does both.
That is true.
All right, jumping into our next one. Jonathan Isaac will return from his knee injury at some point this season.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot.
st-
I'm gonna shoot. I think the Magic front office, and we've had these conversations on our group chat, but the Magic front office is the most precautious, safe front office probably in the history of the NBA. It was what Ji had a hyperextended knee, right? What was labeled as a hyperextended knee, and the MRI came back negative, right? There was no structural damage to his knee, if I'm remembering correctly, and this was back in January. So for a hyperextended knee, it takes about 2 to 6 weeks to heal that, right? We're looking at 6 months after the injury, and he's just now getting into light 5-on-5. Like that seems to me like a front office that realizes that Jonathan Isaac is the future of this franchise, and they don't want to put him in a situation where he could hurt himself long term, which is fine, right? It's okay that you want to protect your players, but I do think that there comes a point where the protection is too much. Like, how long is Ji not going to see action on the court before it's like, okay, now doesn't it kind of become a liability if he does step on the court because you've had him away for so long? So I think we will see Ji play. I think the front office is kind of treating it like Ji is a secret weapon in a way, but I think Ji will play when the season returns.
Yeah, I feel like our front office, they run this organization like they're the damn CIA. It is crazy because if you really think about it, they said the exact same thing about Markelle Fultz. Oh, we don't know if he's going to be able to start for the season, blah, blah, blah. We don't know what whatever the case may be. We're getting clowned by ESPN for all these little not full of information quotes that they were giving out. And I feel like we're getting the exact same thing from the front office. They're the ones that is providing the practice clips. They're the ones that, it's not like the reporters are out there watching them practice. They can say whatever they want. They're not going to lie, but at the same time, they're not going to tell their full truth. Do I see him coming at some point? Yes. So I'm definitely going to shoot. Why not say no from the get? If it was absolutely out of line, his body isn't ready, he's not doing any contacts, so just say that no, he's not playing. All that the front office has said is don't look too deep into it. That's all they've said. They haven't rolled anything out. He is out there practicing every day with the guys. Yeah, he may not be doing full 5-on-5 contact, whatever the case may be, but he's still out there. He's still shooting. He's still doing everything that they're doing to at least some capacity. They are reporting that he's not participating in full practices, that he's been doing more of personalized work with assistant coaches. But I'm not buying the fact that he's not going to play at all. Why put him through all that just not playing? And at the same time, Ji is saying that he's ready to go. That he's good to go. If the doctors tell me that, hey, I'm good and they're willing, then I'm ready to go. He's ready to play. And I think that if he doesn't play, then it just goes back to the fact that our front office is just being way overly precautious because the player's saying that he's good to go.
Yeah, so he said he's ready. He's going to do everything he can to be ready to return. Coach Clifford came out and said, yeah, he's not practicing fully. He's not even doing 5-on-5 yet. But yet, on Thursday, he practiced on 5-on-5 with the team. We've seen some videos of that taking place. So I'm going to shoot just because I want to. Like, I want to see him play. But there is a part of me that says, realistically speaking, the front office will not let him play. They're going to see, this next 16 games, whatever it may be that we have left to play the season, as not enough of a valid reason to throw him out there and rush him when they can just hold him out and have him come back in December, be fully fresh for a new year. Again, the fan in me, the me that's hopeful, just want to see him play because I think he will make a huge impact on our team. And not only that, the playoff experience, again, that's what we're all about right now. These young guys, get them playing against the best of the best. There we go. Throw him out there. Even if it's off the bench, I understand he may not be a starter when he gets back, but at least give him 20 minutes a night, 15 minutes a night. Get him out there. Get him exposed to playing good minutes, quality minutes against the top teams in the East. And we'll go from there.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say come July 31st, Jonathan Isaac will be on the court.
July 31st, you think?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't see him playing like the 8 games of finishing off the season. Maybe towards the back end, but I kind of see them. Why risk that if you already know that you're going to be in the playoffs with a player like Ji that you're already so precautious about?
But do we know for a fact that if you don't play during those 8 games, you're eligible for the playoffs?
Should be. I mean, he should
Yeah.
be because it's a player just getting back from injury. And he is in the bubble, so he has already gone through all the protocols of getting checked and getting ready. So he should be able to come back just for the playoffs.
I don't know. I think, in my opinion, if Jonathan Isaac is not playing by July 31st, and you're talking about preserving his knee, it wouldn't make sense to allow him to play in the playoffs with guys that have already had at that point 11 games to get in rhythm, who are probably in super in game shape, are playing high level basketball, and then you're going to put JI in at that point. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree that I think that maybe midway point. I don't say right on July 31st. I would say at least maybe 3-4 games in. If he's not in by that midway point, then I would completely rule him out. Yeah, because I don't agree that putting him in playoff mode first game of the playoffs as that being the right move. But we'll see what happens.
A healthy JI going into the playoffs, who has played scrimmage games and the in-play games, I think he takes this team. Like, he adds another dimension to this team. Maybe not offensively, because we've seen what his shot is like and whatnot. But defensively, I think Jonathan Isaac literally changes the dynamic of this team. And it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, you give us Jonathan Isaac, and if I'm the Raptors, I'm scared.
You gotta be. You gotta be.
100%. Because you think about it, he's the one player that, in my opinion, in the whole entire NBA, now obviously there's others, but he's definitely one player that I see as being the neutralizer of Pascal Siakam.
Yep. And not to mention, if J.I. doesn't play, we're probably going to go up against the Raptors, and Chris Boucher and Terrence Davis are going to go off on us, drop 30 points like they did last time, which is crazy. But that goes to show what a defensive anchor like Jonathan Isaac does for the team, right? Because I think there's a little bit of disrespect when teams play Orlando. Like, teams come in expecting to win sometimes. And I think when you have a guy like J.I. who kind of locks down the paint and can close out at the three, I think it just changes things entirely.
I mean, with that being said, pass or shoot, the Raptors will be a better matchup in the playoffs.
Go ahead, Al.
Oh, man, shoot. I'm going to shoot just because I don't want to see Giannis. I don't want to see that team. Even though Eric Bledsoe hasn't even gotten to the bubble yet because he tested positive, I think, twice with COVID-19. So, but even then, I just think, man, Milwaukee's a scary team. Giannis, you can throw Isaac at him, throw whoever you want to, and you just cannot stop that dude. I mean, he can just by himself will that team to victory. So give me the Raptors. Even then, it's a better storyline too. I think we lost to them last year. We felt like we could have given them a better battle than we did. We could have won at least 2 games last year, and we didn't. I think this is a good way for the team to come back, face a team that they lost to last year, and again have the young guys go out there with some passion and say, "Hey, we're not gonna get swept. Number one, only win 1 game. We're gonna improve on what we did last year." And again, if Isaac is back, I do think that series can go easily 6 or 7 games.
I'm gonna pass. I think
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass because when I look at the Raptors, right? When we talk about the Bucks, obviously Giannis is incredible, right? And like Al said, Giannis has the ability to will the team to a win. But I think the Raptors are just dangerous, man. Like their bench is ridiculous. And we've seen Kyle Lowry is a problem. Like people hate on Kyle Lowry and they say all of these things, but Kyle Lowry goes off whenever he plays on the Magic. Fred VanVleet as a point guard coming off the bench, super dangerous. Pascal Siakam, you have to believe he's made improvements as well. I don't know. And then, like I said, when you have those young guys like Chris Boucher and Terrence Davis who are not afraid to just play in big moments, and we've seen it, I think it takes the team to a whole nother dimension. And like Al said, if Eric Bledsoe is not healthy, I think Eric Bledsoe is a huge part of the Milwaukee offense. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is also dependent on whether J.I. plays or not. You put J.I. on Giannis, he slowed him down before, and we've seen that. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that are up in the air. If J.I. is on this team, I like our chances, man, against anybody. If J.I. is not on, I think we're gonna get steamrolled by a lot of teams in the playoffs.
All right, so first and foremost, don't you dare bring up Chris Boucher's name ever again. That was one game. That was one game, Justin. Let it go. Second, Kyle Lowry, Game 1, Eastern Conference playoffs in Toronto, donut. Donut against the Magic.
But what did he do?
Against the Magic.
What did he do to us the rest of that series?
That's fine. We're talking about Game 1. You're jumping ahead, Justin. And this is against DJ Augustine. When I look at Toronto's roster, I don't like their roster. Who are you afraid of? Granted, yes, Kyle Lowry is a baller. I'm okay with the matchup with Kyle Lowry and Markelle Fultz. Pascal Siakam, he's their most dangerous person. But with Jonathan Isaac, who's the biggest defensive sleeper in the NBA, I like my chances. Fred VanVleet, he's like just a younger version of DJ Augustine. Like, who is it? Serge Ibaka? Who is it that you're afraid of, Justin?
Listen, when we played against the Raptors last year, Marc Gasol dominated, right? Marc Gasol legitimately dominated.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
so
agree
when we talk
100%.
about X factor, right? You have to think about who are the guys that are probably going to shine in the bubble. And those guys are the vets, the guys that have done it, that don't really let things get to them. The young guys, I mean, this is a new experience for everybody. But you have to understand, the vets are the guys who understand their bodies, know what it takes for them to be ready. You know what I mean? I think those little things give you advantages. And I don't know, man, when I look at the Raptors, I genuinely feel like they have more weapons for this type of environment. I feel like they have more weapons to be successful than the Bucks do.
Yeah, you know what's funny? You saying Marc Gasol's name, that was my response. Like, when I look at the roster, it's true. Like, I don't see anybody that I'm like, oh my God, Kawhi is there, Steph Curry. It's not LeBron. You know, it's Siakam, who's a great player. But if we do have a tandem of Isaac and Gordon on him, yeah, he may average 20 points a game, but he may have to take 25 shots to get there. I'm okay with that. But you know what I'm concerned about? Marc Gasol guarding Vucevic, who's our best offensive player right now.
Right.
It's a mental thing, man. It's not even physical. It's a mental thing. This guy just goes on the court, tip off, and you can see Vuce just goes, I cannot even play against this guy. Because you see all the big centers out there, Embiid being one of them. And Vuce just plays well against Embiid. Like, he dominates against him. Marc Gasol goes out there, 4 for 22, 8 points.
It's the physicality.
5 rebounds.
It's the physicality. Yeah. And I don't know, Toronto's transition, like, offense, one of the best in the league. Like, off of steals, Toronto gets to the bucket super quick. And I think transition defense is one of the things that Orlando struggles with. But when J.I. plays, the transition defense is a lot better, right? So that's what I'm saying. That J.I. playing or not playing is going to determine a lot of Orlando's success. And I agree. When we played Toronto last year in the playoffs, we didn't have Markelle. Can Kyle Lowry have an issue with, like, speedy guys like Markelle? Of course. But Kyle Lowry, if I had to put money on it, Kyle Lowry's gonna prove his value like he does usually in the playoffs.
You guys are forgetting one major thing.
Uh-oh.
Physicality, Mo Bamba just gained 20 pounds of muscle.
But we also discussed that Mo Bamba's not a physical player. So although he might have that weight, he might not want to engage in physicality. And you're not going to tell me that Mo Bamba's going to out-physical Marc Gasol. That's not happening.
No. Listen, I'm not taking anything away from the Toronto Raptors. They're obviously the defending champions, whatever the case may be. I get it. At the same time, if we have Jonathan Isaac looking at our roster and looking at the matchups, I feel really good. Like, give me Toronto. Like, I want Toronto.
Yeah.
Even more so for just a little revenge and payback, because it was we expected with Kawhi we expected to be swept.
Right.
Realistically. And with no disrespect to DJ Augustine or anything, DJ killed it. But at the same time, we know that we needed something a little extra, and we have that now. And I really like our roster matchup with Toronto. There's nothing about me that wants anything to do with Milwaukee, but you give me Toronto, and I feel good enough to where I would put a nice little wager on it and seeing our guys make it.
And I will say another guy that going into the playoffs is going to be vital is Evan. You have to remember last year during the playoffs, the whole season, Evan was struggling. This year, he kind of came up. In my opinion, he was in contention for an all-star appearance, but then he started kind of tapering off toward that break, and it caused him, votes. But I think Evan is one of those guys. When he's on, Evan is a problem. So that's one of those X Factor guys if you want another one.
Yeah, for
as
sure.
much we love him or hate him, it's those two Euro brothers that we love and hate so much. If Vooch and Fournier can step up in the playoffs and play how they play in the regular season, and again you add a healthy Isaac to that team, again against the Raptors, who Fournier and Vooch struggled against last year, and again we almost won 2 games against them last year with Kawhi. Mm-hmm. Again, I like our odds. But again, are we going to step up in the playoffs and show up? That's the thing. I'm concerned with Vooch against Gasol. I don't know.
It depends when Magic shows up. Hopefully, it's post All-Star Game Magic.
And you throw in a triple-double Aaron Gordon, and things change.
All right.
Oh.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Final thoughts.
Just give me basketball, man. I'm excited. I feel like it's Christmas this week, even though it's only scrimmages, but I'm excited to go to work, come back home, and put up a DVR and just watch some Magic games. It's been a while. I'm excited for that, man. I'm excited. I want to see what Markelle looks like out there and Mo Bamba in scrimmages. I'm hoping they get some good run. They let them kind of free flow out there. And I want to see Markelle's shot. I know it's always been a thing, right? Let's see how he looks after an extended break. If that shot looks better, if that the shoulder looks better. So that's what I'm excited for as we move into the first week of basketball here.
Yeah, for me, it would have to do with Steve Clifford and the coaching staff. I think that conversation about extending the rotations, I think, is a beautiful conversation, especially during this circumstance. I feel like having 10, maybe even 11 players on the court, well, not on the court at the same time, but, in the rotation is going to be interesting to see, because I think we have maybe 11, 12 players who could cause problems if they're playing, in rhythm. So that'll be interesting to see. I also want to see what Steve has kind of come up with now that he's been with the team for 2 seasons. He had three or so months of no basketball to kind of plan and scheme and kind of revise tape and go over those things. So it'll be interesting to see what new things Clifford brings to the table for this team.
Yeah, in a recent podcast, Evan Fournier on the BDS podcast, he was quoted that Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac are the future of this franchise. And the future is July 31st. So really hoping, fingers crossed, that Jonathan Isaac is able to play. If J.I. is able to step on the court with Markelle Fultz, I'm really hoping to see that they kind of take the baton and kind of push this team forward. It's gonna be exciting, man. There's nothing better than the Magic season starting back up and jumping into the playoffs. But man, that's it. Really good episode, guys. Thank you everyone for listening, and that's a wrap for us. Till next time, peace.
Thank you for listening to the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans.
Be sure to visit our website, theozonepod.com. And remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.